Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eston Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com, and you're here on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. The 2021 NFL Draft is in the books, and now let's look back at what the Jets were able to do. And we're pleased to be welcomed by a very special guest that's joined me on the radio, but for the very first time, we're popping the video cherry here. That is Jon Ledyard, NFL Draft Analyst, does a lot of great work currently for Pewter Report. Let's bring him in. Jon, what's happening, man?
Absolutely, Paul. Great to be with you here, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So let's dive into this class. We'll kind of go pick through pick here. And then also, I'm just going to throw some stuff at you about the Jets draft that's just some interesting nuggets and factoids. We'll start off at the top here. And similar to Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, it's almost as if it's been assumed for so long we've like barely talked about it. It feels, at least anyway, here from the Jets' perspective. They take Zach Wilson, quarterback at a BYU. What do you think of him? What do you think of the fit? And let's start right there at the top.
I've really liked Zach Wilson's tape. I would have taken Justin Fields, and that'll be kind of where this draft is retraced to, as you and I know. I mean, it'll be this decision over the other quarterbacks that were on the board. Having said that, I really like Zach Wilson. I think he's a really good quarterback prospect. I certainly understand the allure. I mean, the ability to throw off platform, not only with the velocity the way that he does, but also accuracy. Not something you always see. You can see a lot of those guys that can do that. They play more erratic than he does. He really plays pretty consistent and under control. So I like that about him. Sometimes it's a little bit too calm. He needs to move through progressions quicker. In the NFL, everything's going to get sped up. He had great protection. Rarely did he face a significant pass rush. And so in the NFL, everything's going to be a tick faster, and he's going to have to make decisions a tick faster. And so, yeah, because of that, I think that it's going to be maybe a little bit of a rough first season for him. But that offense is also, assuming it looks like Shannon's offense, you can't find many better places to start your NFL career than an offense like that. One of the big issues with quarterbacks that get drafted early, a lot of the time, they go to an offense, a team, and a franchise that isn't very good. And that's obviously not going to be the case now with a new regime coming in. I think that I believe in a lot with the Jets. I think that bodes well for Wilson because the landing spot is so important. So that's been pretty critical in evaluating him there, I think.
Let's go to the other first-round pick. And no, it wasn't at 23. Joe Douglas said, screw this. Grab the bags, honey. We're moving up. And they moved up for Elijah Vera Tucker, 14th overall. I'm going to be honest. I was saying it for weeks. Best case scenario, I'll do a rain dance outside, do whatever is necessary to get AVT to NYJ. And somehow, some way, the gods blessed it and made it happen. But I also want your analysis, of course, but there's been a lot of hoopla made about, oh boy, Jets moving up for a guard. Bad move here by the Jets. So I want you to, of course, address that narrative that seems to be out there among some analysts that they did not like the move for the Jets to trade up that high for a guard.
Yes, I think in a vacuum, I would agree that that's too high to trade up for a guard. In a vacuum, I do think the context is important. Sometimes we get so caught up in like the numbers part of it, which does matter, and I do support fully. But I think sometimes we got to look at the full picture too a little bit. Jets could have used the extra picks, no question. Don't think this is the best draft ever. Like this whole draft class as a whole. I don't think it's the deepest draft ever. I think if you felt like you could get two of the best players in the class and there were only a handful of them, I think I understand why you go and do it. Plus, they kept their second round pick. So that's a great pick to keep. So even if you disagree with the move in principle, I think it's easy to understand why the Jets did it. Being a huge Elijah Vera Tucker fan, he was the sixth player on my board. I definitely understand why they did it. Having a great offensive line for your young quarterback is really important too. And to me, he's a tier. I had him as the best offensive lineman in the entire class, any spot. So to me, being able to get that guy, that's really valuable. So in principle, I do agree. I do think each situation should be looked at in context. I certainly understand the things from the Jets' perspective, especially knowing they had that early fourth, they had that early second, and they knew that even if we gave something up, we were still going to be able to get another really good, impactful player. And they definitely did, got a couple more. And so I get why they did what they did. In principle, I definitely wouldn't make a habit of it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do in a class like this one.
And is there anything, too, I haven't really heard this discussed a lot, but the Jets have, of course, Mekhi Becton at left tackle, who was very impressive last year. There's a lot to like there. Elijah Vera Tucker, if everything lines up the way it's supposed to, he's going to line up literally right next to Mekhi Becton there, left tackle, left guard. Is there something to really good players, in theory, really playing next to each other and what that can mean for the rest of the offense and kind of directing things down to the left highway there behind Becton and AVT?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. No, it's great to have that, I think, on your offense. Obviously, when you have a strength of side, I don't know whether that'll be kind of how they do things or whether that'll be kind of a schematic thing that they think through or not. One of the things with Elijah Vera Tucker that makes him so valuable is if you needed in a pinch, you could slide him out and put somebody else in a guard. You could play tackle. I mean, he played tackle at a very high level this past season. Teams might not see him as a tackle because of his arm length and because he's even better at guard, but I think he could have a good NFL career out of tackle. So being able to have that it gives you a ton of flexibility. If somebody gets hurt, it's critical. I mean, you don't have a lot of great tackles. So instead of finding this great number 3 tackle, now your number 3 tackle is your starting guard. And so, yeah, I think that he definitely adds a lot of value to the team, and it could affect things schematically, certainly, depending on how they feel about the rest of the lineup.
Let's go to the second round. And this was, and I said it before the draft, that it was one of my favorite picks. You reset after day one. You have all day to take trade calls or whatever you'd like for 34. And especially after moving up from 23, there was a lot of chatter out there that, okay, of course, Joe Douglas values the draft picks. He's going to trade back, recoup some of what he lost. But he said, screw this, I'm staying right there at 34, and couldn't pass up the value. That value was Elijah Moore, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. A lot of people projected him late 1. He didn't go there. The Jets get him at 34. What are they getting here? And again, this seems like some sort of weird first world problem that I don't think the Jets have had at wide receiver in a long time there, John.
Yeah, Elijah Moore was the 15th player on my board, I think. I had a first round grade on Elijah Moore. I think he's a beast. I think people look at him and say small receiver. No, I mean, he plays so big at the catch point. Dude got hit all the time as he made catches, and he still hung onto the ball. I mean, he just never drops the football. He really is terrific at becoming a runner before he even finishes the catch, really, but he never drops the ball. So he finishes the catch and then he's instantly in like yak mode. And so I love that about him. His game is so clean already. It's pro ready. He can play in the slot. I think he can play outside, even if he didn't do it a ton. Still over 100 snaps outside this past year at Ole Miss. So I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's going to play and contribute right away. And wouldn't surprise me if he becomes their best receiver, even as a rookie.
John, what's up with all these Ole Miss guys? DK Metcalf falls to second round. A.J. Brown, second round. Does Elijah Moore deserve to be in the DK A.J. Brown conversation?
Well, I don't know if his upside is as high as those guys. I'll say that. Those guys, because of their size and the fact that they also have elite athleticism, they are physically just things they're going to be able to do that Elijah Moore's not quite going to be able to do. If there was any knock on him, it's that. But everything he physically can do, because he's a great athlete. He goes up, competes for the football. He's got ball skills. He plays hard at the catch point, even when contested. You get to a level where guys are bigger than you playing corner. There certainly are going to be at least the percentage of time that you did things in college is probably going to drop in the NFL for most guys. Having said that, I just think he wins in so many different ways, and he's so valuable because of that inside, outside, after the catch, at the catch point, running routes, down the field, speed. I mean, he just gives you really everything. If he were a couple inches bigger, everybody would obviously been way on board with him being in the first round. I get why, because he's not a couple inches bigger, but I definitely think his game still translates and he's still going to have a ton of success in the NFL.
Again, we're speaking with Jon Ledyard, NFL draft analyst, and great work for Pewter Report. You can follow him on Twitter at Ledyard NFL Draft. And speaking of Twitter, Jonathan, I was scrolling on the old timeline over the weekend, and this next pick we're about to talk about, the Jets in the 4th round, you said this is the way to do it. There was a lot of smokescreen action for the Jets. Ooh, Travis Etienne. Ooh, Najee Harris maybe. The Jets resisted that urge, and you seem to like the resistance of that urge. The Jets end up with Michael Carter, running back out of North Carolina.
He's really good, man. I mean, he can pass protect right out of the gate. He's smart and intelligent player. Is experienced. He's going to come right in and fit right in. I think physically there's no question he's ready to go. Not the biggest dude, so maybe he doesn't carry 25 times a game, but you're probably not doing that anyway. I just think he's going to be productive. And those systems spit out productive running backs, and then he's talented and he can catch the football and he'll block, and he made catches vertical balls down the field for North Carolina. So I think he's very, very talented. Kept Javonte Williams from really taking over, who was a higher pick than him, much higher pick than him, kept him from completely taking over college football by actually leading North Carolina in rushing, despite not being the better prospect for a lot of people. So I think they got him a great player at a really good spot on the board. I mean, very valuable spot on the board to be able to reel in somebody like that.
Let's take a quick detour here. So, for the first time in, I think it's 38 years, the Jets started the draft with four straight offensive players. This just doesn't happen. Jets fans are used to defensive tackle, of course. Let's get another one of those in the first round, or this or that. So, I'm going to be honest, a lot of us didn't know what to do when they kept drafting offense over and over again. We didn't know if it was ever going to end. It ended up ending in the fifth round. But before we get there, what about the strategy of Joe Douglas saying, screw this, we're going to surround Zach Wilson with as much talent as possible. And if there's some lapses on defense, so be it. The offense won't be an issue here. You know, they're like an offensive lineman or a weapon or everything they got for Zach Wilson. What do you think of that strategy, trying to surround the young quarterback with as much talent as possible right at the get-go?
Well, it makes complete sense to me because this was an offensive draft, and so why not just address the strength of the draft? In my opinion, that was the way to go. And so, yeah, I thought that he did a great job. I mean, honestly, all four of his first picks were just great picks. I mean, just no way around it. They were just he got four studs. And as this team rebuilds, this franchise rebuilds, if Zach Wilson, if he can make that jump, obviously it's all an if with quarterbacks, it's big. It's a new system. I got to see what it looks like. But if he can do that, and the rest of these guys, I have very little doubt about. And I think that you'll look back at those picks and those moments in the draft as the ones that really started to turn around the Jets franchise.
Let's go to the fifth round. And this is where the defensive run starts. They start with first four offense, all offense, then they go all defense the rest of the way. That's the first time that's happened this century for the New York Jets. It's Jamie Sherwood, linebacker out of Auburn. And some of these positional things, as they're coming in, the Jets, and we'll get to it, obviously, as we get through the rest of the picks here, they drafted safeties, and they're just converting them to linebacker. And Robert Saleh is trying to do that. The Jets missed out on Keanu Neal in free agency. It was down to him and the Cowboys, and he was going to play linebacker for the Cowboys. The Jets seemed like, okay, if we can't get Keanu Neal, we're going to try to get as many Keanu Neal guys as we can to try to fill those holes at linebacker. What's the deal here with Jamie Sherwood? I've heard a lot of really good things.
Well, he is kind of one of those big physical safeties that everybody's kind of hoping, becomes as nice hybrid piece for you, play in the box, can match up in the slot with tight ends. It's interesting. He was not very highly ranked for most people. I barely watched the guy play. I didn't have time to get to everybody this year with the Bucs winning the Super Bowl. I got started on the process really late. So I didn't have time to look at everybody. So some of these guys who were day three picks for them, I was kind of like doing a little research on myself. Later on down the board, I think they made some good ones. But yeah, to me, I think Sherwood, the hope is with him really that he becomes kind of like I don't want to say Cam Chancellor, but that's like the MO. That's like would be like the dream if that, that's like the high end, I think, of what you're hoping for from him. So you can argue about he is kind of that just like he could blitz, he can do, but the biggest thing is he has to be able to clean up his angles. He's just kind of over aggressive player right now. And he's a lot of rough edges. So I know the Pro Football Focus had him ranked very high. I don't remember how high, but it was very high. And that was definitely not consensus based on the consensus board that was out there. But it intrigues me because they didn't even grade him very highly, I don't believe, for his seasons, if I remember doing the research. And they still liked him, though, just because of the traits and everything that were there. So I'm very interested to see how how it works out. He obviously, when he ran the 4.75, at 6'2", 216, okay, you're going to be a little bit slower, but a 4.75 pro day as a safety, maybe, becomes a linebacker, something like that. But once that happened, I kind of like took him off my watch just because I had to limit it to, if I could get to 150 guys, it'd be good, but I had to kind of take him off because of that. So I was a little bit surprised to see him get drafted that highly.
The Jets' most underrated need heading into this draft was arguably linebacker. They had C.J. Mosley, Jared Davis, and then just a bunch of nothing. So I'm curious your opinion here. So the Jets had opportunities at these linebackers, like Dylan Moses or something like that in this draft. They opted for the safety guys that they're going to convert. I mean, I guess there's no one you'd rather trust to coach these guys up than Robert Saleh, who's done it along the way. Guys like Fred Warner, someone he mentioned in his post-draft presser with guys like this from that standpoint. Is that, should Jet fans really trust that just Robert Saleh is going to be able to figure it out with these latter guys here, just going to be able to insert them into the mix? Or should he have just opted for the traditional sense and trying to get actual linebackers just to play these spots in the 4-3?
Yeah, I think that I don't have as much. I think maybe they're still hoping Blake Cashman brings something to the table. Right. Some of these other guys who haven't played much. I don't have much faith in Jared Davis, but I would like to see like what it looks like with a fresh start. So I don't think it's the most important position necessarily on the field, but it is a little bit interesting because of Salah's background, like you said. I mean, San Francisco just couldn't get enough. They had so many at once. They had to get Quan out of here, and that was kind of like that. They just had a surplus of talented linebackers. So yeah, I think that maybe they're hoping that the guys that are on the roster. I mean, the hope is C.J. Mosley can make good on that contract a little bit, and that they can use those guys to their advantage, and then maybe it's a priority for next season. I guess that's their approach. Or, with some of these, they've drafted two of the same type of safety. I mean, Thompson and Seraldine, it's the same type of thing. I mean, maybe they're trying to make those guys your dime backers. Maybe they don't care about size. Maybe they're trying to use those guys in that type of a role, and that could be where they're heading. So I'm just really excited to see what happens, because I think Saul is such a good mind, and the way he uses players at San Francisco got better and better and better. And so if he can take these guys, even make a role out of them, I mean, they're day 3 picks, man. If you can get these guys, Thompson and Seraldine with the 6th round, and you can get a roll out of him, I thought that was an absolute steal of a pick if he's healthy. The way he plays the game, just, I think it's the MO, it's a demeanor he's looking for. Maybe he didn't get a great player, but he's a guy that's going to help set the culture. That's important too. Your new coach, you might not get a bunch of studs, a bunch of Pro Bowlers in day 3 of your first draft, but those guys want to set a culture in what they're doing. And I think that a lot of the guys they drafted will help build that culture there. And then eventually you get more talented guys maybe, but in the meantime, the standard's been set in terms of work ethic and practice and things like that.
It seemed like Draft Twitter all took a shot when Hamza got drafted. They were like, Draft Twitter, of course, cheers. And then everyone took one when old Hamza got selected. And then I was just said, let me do some research here on old Hamza. I saw him doing windmill dunk slams from his basketball background as well. What is it about this guy that is like revved up Draft Twitter? When he got drafted, I saw all these people, man, you tweeted out, man, this Jets draft, man, is, I think you said something like one for the ages. A couple other people immediately said that when Hamza got taken.
Yeah, it's a great draft. I mean, that tweet will come back at me for sure if Zach Wilson doesn't work out, because that's the only one people will care about from the draft. But it's a great draft on paper, and I think Hamza was a part of that. Being able to look for value on day 3, I think is just really big when you're trying to rebuild a roster. You've got a lot of those picks typically if you're one of those teams that's in that rebuilding mode, and so you have to make a couple of them count. I think it just really helps if you can get a couple cheap guys, to play really well. So, with Hamza, I think with Pinnock from Pitt, I mean, I think it's the same thing, athletic and raw, but like, how are you going to figure out in a role, a role for him? Can he, continue to grow as a player, but his testing was crazy. Jonathan Marshall, same thing, Arkansas. I mean, you're getting guys that they are not finished products, but they are athletic. There's upside there. Get them in, develop them. When your team's ready to peak, those guys might be ready to peak, and probably only one of them hits. But if you can get somebody to develop them, I mean, Pinnock really, there's definitely some obvious similarities, I think, to Akello Witherspoon, and thinking through, they got the most out of Akello. I know he wasn't great, but they really did. They got something out of him. And honestly, coming out of college, I wasn't quite sure that was going to happen. And so I think the same thing with Emmanuel Mosley. They got the most out of the corners that they've had. And so I think that Salah's hoping to bring that same thing. Obviously, he's got a long way to go with the Jets group of corners. These guys are not blowing the doors off anybody on paper. But for a while there in San Francisco, that's the kind of corner he was working with. I mean, there weren't a lot of names that you were like, oh, there was Sherman. And then when he was healthy, other than that, it was kind of a revolving door of other guys. And they got Jason Verrett, and he had barely played in 5 years, and he was out there playing well. And so he's definitely maximized that position. So even as you look on paper and you're like, oh, buddy, this looks scary. You really hope that he can pull some of his magic at that position.
See, the only thing I'm praying for, and you nailed it, is that we're going through this draft. We're like, this offense is great, but these corners are looking a little rough around the edges. And then people kept telling me, hey, man, the Robert Saleh scheme, if they're getting an edge rush up front, it doesn't matter who's playing cornerback there, you'll be able to figure it out in theory. Is that something we should feel confident in, or is that kind of a pipe dream?
Well, it might be a pipe dream. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel more confident with him than I would with other coaches in that situation. Maybe really any other coach in that situation based on what he's done over the past few years. So I think you're crazy if you're not scared a little bit. I mean, there's no pedigree in that group at all. I don't think, even past pedigree right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I did like Bryce Hall a little bit coming out, and there were certainly people. Bushaw Austin had his fans as well, and so did Corey Ballentine, to be honest. So, I mean, I can't wait to see what he does with the group. It's a bunch of dudes right now. You hope that at the very least they compete like crazy, so you get the best out of whoever it is.
And just sprinkling the rest of the names here for the draft class, the Jets did double dip on the Michael Carter, so they got the monopoly on that field. Michael Carter, DB out of Duke, they snagged him in the 5th round. Looks like he'll either play in the slot or some free safety action for the Jets as well. And then the one other one was Brandon Eccles, I believe, the quarterback out of Kentucky. They snagged him as well in the 6th round. So just threw some bodies there. John, and this is perhaps, I don't know, the most overrated thing is doing the draft grades literally hours after. It's supposed to take years before you can give any proper grade here for the Jets. I saw a D out there, so I mean, I guess there's a wide range here of what draft grades can be. I've seen some A's, I've seen some D's, but all Jet fans, of course, are waiting on the edge of their seats to see what the great Jon Ledyard slaps here on the New York Jets. So, John, put on the old professor cap here. What's a grade, man?
You saw a D?
Yeah, actually, that was I actually had him on the show. There was a Thor Nystrom of NBC Sports Edge. Yeah,
Thor.
Yeah, I saw it, so I was kind of going through just to try to get kind of a good analysis of everybody. I saw some A's. I'm like, A's, B plus, D. So I didn't text Thor yet, but I got to hit him up about the D. Yeah, he gave.
That's wild. I'll have to text him too. That's crazy. Maybe he's really hitting that trade up. I don't know. Some people will take that more seriously than me, even, but.
And also definitely the Zach Wilson thing. I'll just throw that in there. I feel like a couple of people who hate Wilson. I don't know if that's Thor. I'll text him.
That is, yeah, I think you're right.
A couple of people who hate Wilson just say, "Oh, wow, the draft sucks because of Wilson." Then okay. I don't feel like you should destroy the entire class because you don't like the quarterback. But different strokes.
Yeah, I mean, no, definitely an A for me. I mean, obviously, it's all going to come back to whether Wilson works out or not. But I'm not personally. I'm confident. I think Justin Fields is better than Zach Wilson for sure. But I know how much NFL and landing spots matter and stuff that I can't see matters at that position. So I'm not going to be like that confident enough to say, "Oh, it's a bad draft because they didn't take the quarterback I had a little bit higher." Now, if they'd taken Mac Jones, I would have been much more critical. No offense to Mac, I think he's a fine, but again, there's even between Mac and Zach Wilson to me, there's not much comparison. Yeah, I mean, you got 3 players. I have 17 first-round grades. The Jets got 3 of the 17 first-round grades. So, wow. I mean, I only had 80 players graded rounds 1 through 3. So somebody else may have it graded differently, and maybe that's up to them. But I know that in those players were Zach Wilson, Elijah Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, the running back, Hamza Nasir-Dean was even in that top 80. So they got 5 of my top 80. I don't know if there's another team that got that. There's definitely not another team that got 3 of my top 17. So really 3 of my top 15. So yeah, hats off to them. I think they had an unbelievable draft. I'm excited to see what they do with these DBs. Honestly, the Sherwood, Michael Carter, Jason Pinnock, Brandon Equals. Hamza. Like they just flooded that group, and I wonder how many guys are make the team. They might all make the team because there's not much there right now. So I mean, the football nerd part of me will be watching that defensive backfield very closely to see if he just got 1 or 2 gems out of that crew on the end. And then I think Jonathan Marshall's get him in round 6. It's traits if nothing else. If he doesn't work out, whatever. But it's a sound process in my opinion.
And last one before we get you out of here, John, what are fair expectations for these guys? It seems like for the first time in a long time, a lot of these guys are going to be plug and play. Obviously, Zach Wilson, obviously Elijah Vera Tucker, even, Elijah Moore, quite frankly, even with the receiving group the Jets have, which, again, I kind of mentioned it earlier as a half joke, but really a first world problem that they kind of have all these options right now. We'll see what happens with guys like Jamison Crowder and whatnot. But, again, what should expectations be for some of these guys at the top?
I think that for Wilson, he should, obviously I would assume he starts right out the gate. I don't know why he wouldn't. I mean, so he's got to be ready for that. I think Elijah Moore, I know Jamison Crowder's been long standing there, but it just feels like I don't know what Crowder's role is. Because Elijah Moore is just straight up better than him. Like there's no doubt. Crowder's a nice little underneath receiver. He's definitely a help to a quarterback, but when you have a guy who can do all that at a high level, did it all at a high level in college, and can stretch the field and make way more plays with the ball in his hands. It's just basically like, 2.0 on Crowder. If not more than that, to be honest. So, and Keelan Cole's in the mix now too. So, the receiving core, honestly, I really like if Denzel Mims can just ball out a little bit this season, and he flashed certainly last year. So I'm excited. But yeah, those guys, that group should be good. And Elijah Moore should definitely be in that top 3. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind about that. But I wonder if they take some kind of committee approach or whatever. We'll see. Vera Tucker should start right away. Elijah Moore should start right away. Zach Wilson should start right away. And then defensively, like I said, I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, the safety rooms, obviously the safeties aren't going to start unless they start at linebacker, which is definitely a possibility. I mean, they could bulk one of those guys up or both of them and play them in the linebacker spots. But you have May and Marcus May, and you have LaMarcus Joyner in there. I wonder, if he plays safety or slot. If he plays safety, I think they did say he's playing safety, but that's obviously been way better for him than slot corner's been for him. So, I mean, if that's the case, and those are three of your starters right there, and maybe Joyner's playing in the slot, Ashton Davis hopefully gets to play. I absolutely loved Ashton Davis last year. I'm hoping that he makes me look good this year. And Marcus May is obviously still around. So then the competition at corner is anybody's guess. I don't have a single clue. I mean, obviously if you started now, I would say Bryce Hall and Blushaw and Austin, but I have no idea if that's going to hold up in camp. So I wouldn't start saying have high expectations for day three corners, but if these guys can't even see the field, if they're probably doesn't bode well for them long term. Let's put it that, because I don't think the cornerback room is going to look like this and be this easy to access in New York for a long time after this, hopefully.
That's true. John, I want to thank you so much for joining us here. And I got to tell you, for the first time in a long time, I'm like, oh my goodness, we got a competent organization here picking players. I'm like, wow, this seems great. Analyst, A's, great. Okay, phenomenal. Right. So I got to tell you, from a Jets perspective, this is weird, man. This is really weird.
Yeah, Joe Douglas is good, man. I really think he is. I think they're in the right hands. Obviously, you had to nail the head coach hire. We'll see. But I certainly on paper I like Saleh a lot, and I like what he's bringing with him too. So I've got high hopes for sure.
All right, John, thanks for joining us, man. Take a break, take a vacation with the family. We see the picture there behind you. Take the family somewhere, man. It's been a long draft process and the Super Bowl and everything else. You know what? Take a break, man. You deserve it, and you're the best. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you. Take care of yourself.